A new poll shows 1 in 3 teachers fear teaching LGBTQ plus history with Don't Say Gay. The fallout from Florida's parental rights and education bill is being felt across the country. As other states move to enact similar laws, teachers are feeling the stress of dealing with LGBTQ plus topics. Nationally, only 22% of teachers feel the needs of their LGBTQ students are often being met. For BIPOC or Black, Indigenous, and people of color educators, that drops to 6%. The survey also included 14 different historic topics that teachers felt should be taught in school, including topics like the Civil War and racism in the country. LGBTQ plus history ranked the lowest, with 1 in 3 teachers reporting that it should not be taught. Only 3% of BIPOC teachers thought that LGBTQ plus history should be taught in schools.
Well, we found out that the only profession that rivals being an LGBT political
Advocate?
activist job that's as bad as that is teaching, apparently. That's what we find out in this survey, right?
So, what is happening, we talked about elections earlier, we talked about the school board and how they're being taken over by incredibly homophobic, transphobic, racist people, right? What I want to point out is that little by little, this is the dismantling of our public education system, right? When Betty DeVos was put as the U.S. Secretary of Education, that was a continuation of that. And it's being torn apart little by little by little by little right in front of us. And no one is sounding the alarms to say, look at the assault that's happening on public schools. Public schools used to be a safe ground. There's now school shootings almost every day, right? Like all of this, the culture of schools is transforming right in front of us.
Let's help Orlando in terms of the information of the point that he just made. We have a slide here that we want to re-show you this often message. This is what teachers say. Only 22% believe schools often meet the LGBTQ plus needs. The shocking number there is the 6% of BIPOC teachers. Now, to Orlando's point that he just made, are we approaching midterm elections? Well, let's look at that exact poll and let us show you what's happened over the last 4 years. American teachers in 2020 said 41% often met LGBT needs. In 21, it drops to 31%. In 22, it drops to 22%. Now, we don't have in front of us the numbers prior to 2020, but likely the numbers were very high. If we looked at the end of the Biden, or at the end of the Obama White House, the numbers were probably very high. So what we're watching is a trend showing exactly to the point that you just made. There's great discouragement going on.
Great discouragement. And teachers see themselves as wanting to be able to be available to students, to support students, right? And when you're crippling that ability for teachers to do that, they almost feel like they're not able to do their job as teachers, right? They can't be the safe havens of students. They can't be there to help them. And also they're having to watch everything they do and say out of the fear of their own employment, right? So it's becoming a very hostile environment.
Think about the world we're in right now: inflation, gas prices, everything. Teachers don't want to lose their jobs, you know? I mean, come on, and it's sad because educators are so important for our children. And I'm here telling you, go get another job.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is not the place, this is not the country to be a teacher.
And they're underpaid as it is.
You can make more money at Starbucks.
Yeah,
it's true.
I'm curious, being in what you do as a doctor, as a professor. Does this shock you? Being in the same field, it's different. I imagine it's different.
For higher ed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that I would say that I think, this story that makes me. There's a lot of kind of slivers of hope that I kind of just want to look at, because I always think that's always, we have to do that to stay sane and stay healthy. I was really impressed by the statistic that only 3% of BIPOC, that is Black, Indigenous, and people of color, thought that LGBTQ history should not be taught in schools. That is like the particular marginalized voices within BIPOC folks that are doing really important work and pushing this forward for a number of reasons, we might imagine, right? That is, their voices are already vulnerable, they're already marginalized, so they're super, hypersensitive to the not being taught. let's make sure that everyone supports them at the intersection of LGBTQ studies and race studies, as it's not just LGBTQ studies that's under attack, it's critical race theory, right? All these things, the kind of boogeyman that has become known as critical race theory, that's another important point. And I would also just really draw our attention again for that hope, that while these kinds of laws, like Florida's Don't Say Gay, there are other states like California, it really started in California, that now mandate the teaching of LGBTQ plus history. Last week I did a workshop for CUNY, this City University of New York, to train. It's called the LGBTQ plus History Institute, to train K through 12 educators about how they can incorporate LGBTQ studies into their regular offerings as part of their curriculum. And I gave a lecture on immigration history in the United States and how, when they teach immigration, they should incorporate LGBTQ voices. And
That's great.
I don't want us to focus only on, that is that there are models too that are really positive and really progressive that we could learn from and hopefully push forward as we deal with the nightmare that is ahead of us.
We want to add just a little information to the survey that might help you in terms of the point that you made about teachers, and it's not a good time to be a teacher. We have a slide here that we want to show you that asked these teachers in this poll why they felt this way, why the drop in half that we just showed you according to teachers. There are two overriding reasons that appeared in the poll. The number one, if we can show that slide, the number one is the introduction of the Don't Say Gay laws, which became fear for them. And then the number two is that, and surprisingly, the number two reason was the introduction of hundreds of anti-LGBT laws, being state bills, being introduced around the country. And teachers felt like, here it is, felt like that they did not have support. And so they were fearful of the Don't Say Gay type of laws that were developing, which is fear. But the number two reason was they felt like if they fought, they wouldn't have support. And they feel that way because of all of the LGBT laws that are appearing. That must be incredibly discouraging to you, again, from the standpoint of it's almost like fighting smoke.
Well, and what you have to do in this situation, in a position like me, is to look for the opportunities where we can win, and it's in the Florida Senate. And so a lot of focus is on the Florida Senate. That's where the margins are smaller. In the House, we're grossly outnumbered, and so we're looking for those opportunities. We're looking for the hopeful places where we can be able to win.
And that you're optimistic that that's possible this fall?
Is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't heard that before. Well, that's great.
More optimism.
We love our teachers. Let's end
Yes,
by
we
saying
do.
we love our teachers.
That's right.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.